I was forcibly bound to a psycho-villain system, which demanded I complete missions, bully the male lead, and break both his legs, bribe some thugs to kidnap and XX the female lead, threaten the male lead with a video of the dismembered female lead to extort a ransom. Yep, all tasks that could get you a hefty prison sentence. Without a second thought, I dialed the familiar number. Hello, police station? I'd like to report someone here for incitement. You're the one who called? A uniformed policewoman sized me up, her gaze scrutinizing. I pointed to my temple. There's something new in my head. It calls itself the psycho-villain system. It's telling me to bully an innocent male university student named Ji Yuan and to forcibly take a stay-at-home girl named Tang Yin. The policewoman's expression didn't change. She just tilted her head towards the person beside her. Take him for a screening. The test results came back. Everything normal. I wasn't on drugs, and my mental state was stable. The policewoman, Officer Lee, decided to give me another chance. Fine, you say there's a system. Where's the proof? I took out my phone and, under her gaze, dialed the number of the target the system had assigned me to bully, my upper bunkmate, Ji Yuan. The call connected. Following the system's first-ever novice mission, I cleared my throat and cursed, "Son." There was a second of silence on Ji Yuan's end. "Got it, my good boy. Mr. Daddy, huh?" Rustle, several grains of gold, the size of rice kernels, appeared out of thin air, clattering onto the table in front of me. "Officer, did you see that? As long as I bully Ji Yuan according to its demands, the system gives me gold." Officer Lee's pupils contracted. The young officers behind her looked like their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. One officer immediately stepped forward, picked up a golden kernel, and examined it repeatedly. "Captain Lee, it's real gold." Officer Lee immediately took me to a room, had a male officer search me from top to bottom, and then made me change into a set of clothes they provided. Then I was brought back to the interrogation room. Officer Lee stared at me, her tone serious. "Do it again." I was a bit exasperated. "Again." She nodded. "Yes, exactly what you just did." I had no choice but to dial Ji Yuan's number again. "Sonny boy." "Ji Yuan. Damn, you're really acting up. Call me D." I hung up. Again, a few more kernels of gold materialized from the air in front of my chest and clattered to the floor. Officer Lee's breathing grew heavy. She immediately picked up her walkie-talkie, her voice suppressing excitement. "Lock down the scene. Report the entire situation immediately." Half an hour later, a higher-ranking leader arrived. The first thing he did was make Officer Lee and everyone else present take a drug test. Then, a group of people surrounded me, staring as if I were a giant panda. The leader cleared his throat. "Begin your performance." I had no choice but to call Ji Yuan a third time. "My good little son." And then, the gold kernels appeared out of thin air once more. The leader was dumbfounded. He immediately picked up a secure phone to report to his superiors. Another half an hour passed. People sent by the higher-ups arrived and, without a word, dragged the leader away for a screening. I stood in an art studio, facing Ji Yuan. On the easel before him was a nearly completed oil painting, one he had clearly poured his heart into. With a blank expression, I picked up a cup of black coffee and splashed it onto his painting. This was the second task from the system. Ruin Ji Yuan's proudest work in public and utterly humiliate him. The coffee trickled down the canvas, ruining the entire painting. Ji Yuan's face turned livid as he stared daggers at me. I, however, thought his acting was superb. After all, he was whispering to me, "Lin Zhou, for the money from this task, can we do a 70-30 split? I get the 70. Around us, a thin layer of banknotes already covered the floor. Outside the studio, behind a massive one-way mirror, experts from various fields stared with their mouths agape, wide enough to fit an egg. Spatial fluctuations are at zero. We are completely unable to comprehend the principle behind the banknote's appearance. Lin Zhou's brain activity is indeed abnormal, but that waveform looks like encrypted gibberish. Ji Yuan and I were escorted into the highest-level secret conference room. He sat across from me, looking displeased. How come he gets to sit with Officer Lee? I wagged my index finger. I volunteered to turn this in. You were passively cooperative. The nature is different. Officer Lee pushed a file in front of Ji Yuan. Student Ji Yuan, Are you willing to join the anti-system project and assist us in utilizing this high-dimensional system to fight for the interests of the country and its people? We promise to guarantee your personal safety, absolutely. Ji Yuan's lips moved, but he didn't speak. Officer Li upped the ante. Your mother's follow-up medical expenses, the student loans you owe, and all your graduate school costs will be fully covered by the organization. Ji Yuan shot up from his chair and gave a less-than-standard salute. I guarantee I will complete the mission. Next was another target, Tang Yin. According to her file, she was a deep-seated otaku. Her parents were researchers who were away from home year-round, leaving her with enough money to live a worry-free, shut-in life until the end of time. For someone like her, monetary incentives were clearly useless. Officer Li personally led a team to make first contact with her. Student Tang Yin, we are handling a very special case involving the illegal interference of a high-dimensional entity in the thoughts of our citizens. We need your assistance. Tang Yin pushed up the black-framed glasses on her nose, a look of bewilderment on her face. Why do you need my help? I'm just an ordinary person. Officer Li patiently explained. Something called the insane villain system has designated you as the female lead in its plot. We hope you will cooperate with us to complete some of the tasks it issues. Dan Yin, Zhao Wen. That sounds like a lot of trouble. Can you make it pick someone else? I'm not interested in this kind of real-worlder plot. After speaking, she lowered her head and fiddled with her phone. Printed on the case were several large words. High-quality human salted fish. It was over. This girl was impervious to persuasion. Officer Li was about to hit a wall. My eyes fell on an anime character charm peeking out from the pocket of Tang Yin's hoodie, and an idea sparked. I remembered something my cousin, who was obsessed with the 2D world, once said. Bro, remember this. An otaku's soul can't be hidden. I shot Officer Li a look, signaling him to let me take over. I stepped forward, dramatically spreading my 5 fingers to cover my face, then slowly moved them away, looking at Tang Yin from an angle I considered very cool. A twisted will from a chaotic dimension has cast a malevolent curse upon the threads of your destiny. We are the guardians of order, the tuners who walk among mortals, here to help you sever the tentacles of the evil god clinging to the law of causality. Join us, maiden. The bond between us will transform into the strongest demon-breaking spell and completely purify the distortion points of this world. I was channeling my cousin, my inner Chinibu at full power. Officer Li looked at me like I was a lunatic, while Ji Yuan was so embarrassed his toes were curling into the floor. But as for Tang Yin, the light in her eyes was instantly ignited. She leaped up from the sofa with such excitement that her chair tipped over. I'll join. The dark alley seemed to swallow all light. A figure stumbled in. It was Tang Yin. She seemed to be pursued, her face etched with panic. Suddenly, several thugs, with bleached yellow hair, sprang from the darkness, clamped a hand over her mouth, and dragged her deeper into the alley. Tang Yin struggled violently, kicking and punching. Deeper in the alley, more thugs closed in, their malicious gazes fixed upon her. A desperate whimper escaped Tang Yin's lips, and I, hiding behind a nearby trash can, revealed the evil smile required by the system. Mission complete. Acquired item, Fog of Truth. When sprayed, it forces the designated target to speak only the truth for 10 minutes. Uses remaining, 3. As the notification sound faded in my mind, I immediately gave an okay gesture to the walkie-talkie behind me. Officer Li waved his hand, and a large group of personnel flooded into the alley. Operation complete. All teams, wrap it up. The stunt coordination team, Tang Yin struggling, was very powerful. We should consider developing her as a stunt actress next time. The directing team, Tang Yin's facial expression management was spot on. Fear, despair, helplessness, very layered. She's a promising talent. The wardrobe department. Our specially made tear-proof clothing worked perfectly. No damage at all. The yellow-haired leader took off his wig, revealing a handsome face, and began removing his makeup in front of a mirror. Captain Li, next time, can we get the professional team for this kind of physical work? My nails almost split. The first major joint operation concluded successfully. That evening, The command center gathered experts from all fields for an urgent discussion on how to maximize the value of the 3 uses of the fog of truth. In a soundproof interrogation room, a man, arrested for a major financial fraud case, was brought in. He looked arrogant and indifferent. "I've said all I have to say. Don't waste my time if you don't have evidence." Officer Lee interrogated him personally. "Where did you hide the 10-figure sum of illicit funds?" The man sneered. "Guess. If you guess right, I'll tell you." In the adjacent monitoring room, I watched the man on the screen. Officer Lee gave me an order through the earpiece. "Lin Zhou, get ready." From the ceiling of the interrogation room, a nearly invisible nozzle released a colorless, odorless mist. The man was completely unaware. Officer Lee spoke again. "Where are the funds?" The man's gaze suddenly became unfocused, his mouth opening uncontrollably. It was split into 3 parts. One part was converted into unregistered diamonds, hidden in safe deposit box number 307 at my Swiss bank. The password is my first love's birthday. Another part was laundered through an underground bank and converted into gold, buried 3 meters deep under the old locust tree in the backyard of my old home. The last part I donated to my alma mater to build a teaching building named after me. In the monitoring room, everyone gasped. The officer responsible for taking notes typed at a blistering pace. Officer Lee watched the screen, his expression grave. Next, the second one brought in was a man in shackles. His eyes were sinister, and he remained silent. He was the prime suspect in multiple child trafficking cases. Officer Lee asked, "The children who are still missing, where are they sold to?" The trafficker tilted his head with an air of brazen defiance. The truth mist was activated again. The trafficker's body trembled slightly, and he began to speak woodenly. "They're all on a private island called Paradise on the border of Southeast Asia. The buyer is a wealthy man with peculiar tastes. We deliver a batch every week. The island is heavily guarded. You won't be able to get in. We also have a transit station right here in the city on the 3rd basement level of the Golden Years nightclub." Officer Lee's fists clenched so tightly they cracked. Next, the third was a university professor who appeared gentle and refined. He was suspected of stealing state secrets and selling them to foreign powers. But his psychological fortitude was extremely high, and he had maintained zero confession. "Officer Lee, who is your contact? What is the method of exchange?" The professor adjusted his glasses and smiled. "Officer, you should watch what you say." The mist was sprayed. The professor's smile froze on his face. "My contact's code name is Nightingale. He is the cultural attaché at the M country's embassy. We meet every Wednesday at 3 p.m. at the Blue Mountain Cafe in the west end of the city. I give him the intelligence, written with a special solution in a copy of Reader's Magazine, and he leaves the cash in locker number 12. After the 3 criminals were led away, the entire command center was in an uproar. Officer Lee patted my shoulder, his eyes filled with an unprecedented gravity and excitement. "Lin Zhou, one last use. We'll save it for the most critical moment. You've rendered a great service." The luxurious hotel suite was bathed in dim, ambiguous lighting. Tang Yin, dressed in cute anime-themed pajamas, her cheeks slightly flushed and her steps unsteady, collapsed onto the large bed strewn with flower petals. This was yet another mission issued by the system. Drug Tang Yin and attempt to have sex with her. Wearing a bathrobe, I slowly approached from behind her, leaned down, and whispered in what I believed to be a magnetic voice close to her ear. "Xiaoyin, you're so beautiful." Tang Yin responded drowsily, and I eagerly began tugging at her pajamas. What answered me was a resounding slap. There was no haze in Tang Yin's eyes, only clear, burning anger. "Get out!" Clutching my face, I staggered back, putting on the appearance of heartbroken despair after being rejected, and ran out of the room. The moment the door closed, I heard Tang Yin rattling off to Officer Lee, who was hidden in the room. Officer Lee, was the force and emotion of that slap on point? But my hand is injured. Can I apply for work injury compensation? Mission completed. Obtained item. Absolute obedience. Allows a designated target to unconditionally obey any one command of yours for 1 hour. The command cannot violate their survival instincts. I put on the coat handed to me by my assistant and said to Officer Lee, "Mission accomplished." Officer Lee entered the room with his team, first handing a bottle of cold water to Tang Yin, who was sweating profusely. All right, turn off the heating. Don't let our great contributor overheat. Wiping her sweat, Tang Yin asked, "How was my performance just now? Did it give off the vibe of a defiled saintess rising up in resistance?" Someone from the director's team nodded obsequiously. Yes, yes, absolutely. Teacher Tang Yin, the female lead in our next project, is yours. In the adjacent room, Ji Yuan applied an ice pack to my face, gloating. Oh, got slapped. I looked at him expressionlessly. I ruined your painting, and Tang Yin slapped me. So, when are you going to splash, Tang Yin? Once you do, the three of us will be even. Yuenis smilifros. The absolute obedience item had only a 1-hour duration. After an all-night meeting, the organization assigned me only one target. The next day, I was taken to a heavily guarded base. Through bulletproof glass, I saw an elderly man. According to the records, he was a top physicist who, years ago, due to an experimental accident, suffered severe brain damage, fell into a deep coma, and became vegetative. In his mind still resided the final part of a key theory capable of changing the world. For years, countless top doctors have been helpless. Officer Lee looked at me, his expression extremely serious. Lin Zhou, this is our only hope. We're not sure if this item will work on a vegetative person, but we must try. I took a deep breath, walked to the old man's bedside, and activated the item. Facing him, I spoke word by word. Wake up. Write down everything in your mind about the theory of strong magnetic confinement for controllable nuclear fusion. Time passed second by second. Everyone held their breath. Just in the final minute before the item's effect was about to expire, the old man's finger twitched. The item only lasted for an hour, but it created a miracle. The titan of physics, who had been in a slumber for 10 years, truly woke up. Although he only had 1 hour, he used all his strength to fill the whiteboard with dense formulas and theories. When he wrote the last character, the item's time was up, and he fell back into a deep sleep. But this time, he wore a faint smile on his face. The researchers present were moved to tears of excitement as they looked at the knowledge on the whiteboard, which seemed to have come from the future. An hour later, explosive news spread across the globe. Huagua had achieved a subversive breakthrough in controllable nuclear fusion technology. And I, the indirect creator of all this, was sitting in the cafeteria, staring in frustration at the green peppers in my bowl. Ji Yuan had taken all the meat from my bowl and said righteously, "With great ability comes great responsibility. You've contributed so much, you need to eat more vegetables to get your vitamins." I looked at him. Is this a side effect of absolute obedience? It made your skin absolutely thicker too. Officer Lee sat down next to us with his tray. Lin Zhou, the next mission is out. My heart tightened. System mission. Spread rumors and slander Ji Yuan for having a messy private life and academic misconduct. Cause his social death. Yi Yuwen? I know him. That pretty boy from the art department. All his paintings are done by ghost painters. His private life is a mess. He's juggling 8 relationships at once. Our entire dorm has been messed with by him. He looks like a decent guy, but he's actually a scammer. He cheated my best friend out of her money and then skipped town. Overnight, countless negative stories about Ji Yuan appeared on major campus forums and social media. There were pictures and proof, all presented as undeniable fact. Ji Yuan's social media accounts were instantly flooded with all sorts of insults and accusations. When he walked on the street, he could feel people pointing and staring at him. He lay slumped over his desk, his shoulders trembling, looking utterly heartbroken. Mission complete. Item acquired. Lie amplifier. Can spread a fabricated lie through the internet. Anyone who sees it will have an 80% chance of believing it. Ji Yuan immediately opened his mobile banking app. Looking at the large sum of emotional distress compensation that had been deposited into his account, the sorrow in his heart instantly vanished. This is an item we got in exchange for your reputation. How about we use it to clear your name first? I looked at Ji Yuan, feeling a little guilty. Ji Yuan clutched his chest, pushing me away with a grief-stricken face. No, my innocence is not important. Hand it over to the organization. It can shine in a much greater cause. As for this little pain of mine, let filthy lucre soothe it. Officer Lee tapped both of her heads. That's enough, you two. Addicted to the drama, are you? She paused, looking at the light amplifier in my hand, which resembled a USB drive. Has it ever occurred to you that the lie this device spreads might not necessarily be a bad thing? An hour later, a lie was written and entered into the amplifier. The content had been meticulously polished with several top psychologists and education experts. The latest scientific research shows that praising a child daily can effectively improve their IQ and EQ, potentially adding 20 points to their exam scores. It is reported that the famous child star, Ji Yuan, is a successful product of his parents' praise-based education method. The first sentence was pure nonsense, but extremely tempting. The second sentence was added at Ji Yuan's strong insistence. He said it was the reputational compensation he deserved. Officer Lee actually agreed. I pressed the send button. Instantly, this lie swept across the entire internet with viral speed. Countless parents, as if they had found a priceless treasure, began to frantically practice the praise-based education method. For a time, the family atmosphere across the country became unprecedentedly harmonious, and children's faces beamed with confident smiles. Although the final exam scores didn't actually increase by universal 20 points, according to subsequent statistics, the mental health and happiness indices of adolescents did indeed see an unprecedented surge. And Ji Yuan, overnight, became the household name of the child every parent wishes they had. The rumors slandering him crumbled on their own. In their place were all sorts of cheesy compliments. As I watched him snatch the last piece of braised pork from my plate and give me a smug, greasy-mouthed smile, I felt the profound injustice of the world. Officer Lee came over with her food tray and sat down. Stop fighting over it. The cafeteria has extra portions today. There's plenty of braised pork for everyone. She looked at us and smiled. Stick with the organization and you'll eat well. Still worried you won't get enough. Yi Yuan chuckled. Mainly, I'm just scarred for being poor. It's a habit. For the next few months, Project Anti-System proceeded in an orderly manner. We rented a massive stadium, hired several thousand extras, and staged a drama. Tang Yin was attending an awards ceremony as a special guest, but I publicly soiled the expensive gown she had rented, forcing her to accept my high-intensity tutoring session as repayment. Under the gazes of countless extras, I performed the first half of a scene from a certain kind of Japanese tutoring adult film. Finally, through a forced perspective kiss and Tang Yin's humiliated escape, I barely managed to complete the mission. It was also a complete social suicide for me. In the end, we obtained the item, Knowledge Infusion Device. It could perfectly copy the knowledge from a physical book into a designated target's mind within 12 hours. The moment the news was announced, the volunteers signing up for the Knowledge Infusion experiment nearly trampled down our doorstep. We prioritized fields in urgent need of knowledge. I used the device to infuse thick volumes of advanced mathematics, theoretical physics, and introduction to quantum mechanics into the young scientists being specially cultivated by the nation. I infused the lifelong learning of an old traditional Chinese medicine doctor, with his decades of clinical experience, into his final, chosen disciple. I infused lost, ancient handicraft techniques into the new generation of inheritors. As for Ji Yuan, who came to me clutching a copy of An Actor Prepares and said he wanted to infuse the knowledge into himself, he was mercilessly thrown out by Officer Lee. Another time, after kidnapping Ji Yuan and threatening to break both his legs to force Tang Yin to marry me, we obtained an even more overpowered item. Child of Destiny. For 48 hours after use, all choices you make will lead to the most favorable outcome. For those 2 days, the entire nation's top experts and scholars surrounded me with utmost reverence. Teacher Lin, this is our country's resource distribution map. Please take a look. Where should we dig to find oil? I closed my eyes and randomly poked a few spots on the map. The Minister of Natural Resources, as if he had found a priceless treasure, immediately marked them with a red pen. Teacher Lin, these are several of our research directions for cancer-targeting drugs. Which one do you think is the most promising? I looked at the jargon that was like gibberish to me, my head starting to ache. With a grand wave of my hand, I said, the one with the longest name. Teacher Lin, regarding the design of the new generation of aircraft carriers, we have 2 proposals. Teacher Lin, about the plan to land in Japan. I felt like I was being squeezed dry. I had no idea if the random guidance I was giving was right or not. But 3 days later, the first piece of good news arrived. The Ministry of Natural Resources had actually, in a place I had pointed to at random, discovered a massive oil field with astonishing reserves. We have completed most of the tasks issued by the system, but the last few have brought the entire command center to a stalemate. Deceive Tang Yin into thinking you are Ji Yuan and get her pregnant. Gouge out Ji Yuan's corneas and install them in your own body. Push Ji Yuan off a cliff, then get plastic surgery to look like him and take his place. These few tasks, no matter what, could not be completed without causing substantial harm. The organization designed countless circuitous plans, such as using clones, CG special effects, or hypnosis, but all were judged as failures by the rigid system. After repeated defeats, I was arranged to rest in the base's apartment, awaiting a new plan. But the cold voice in my mind rang out without any warning, like a sudden clap of thunder. The host has been passively slacking for a long time. The mission is judged as a failure, and a level 1 punishment will be executed. Before I could even curse out loud, a terrifying electric current exploded from the depths of my brain and instantly flowed throughout my entire body. BZZD. I convulsed all over, smoke coming out of my mouth, and fell down stiffly. I woke up again in the base's medical room. The smell of disinfectant mixed with a faint burning odor, an unpleasant combination. Officer Li, Ji Yuan, and Tang Yin were all gathered around my bed, each with a more somber expression than the last. What's going on? My throat was so dry it felt like it was smoking. Ji Yuan handed me a glass of water, his usual playful grin absent from his face. You were electrocuted. The doctor said your heart stopped for half a minute. Tang Yin's eyes were red. She pushed up her glasses and whispered, "We all thought you." Officer Lee cut her off, her face ashen as she looked at me. It was the system. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. I nodded with a bitter smile. Punishment for dereliction of duty. In a conference room, the atmosphere was stifling. I had just been discharged from the hospital and was dragged straight here, still in my patient gown. So, if you don't complete the mission, you die, Officer Lee summarized. I nodded. Ji Yuan slammed his fist on the table. What the hell is this? Forcing people to die. Tang Yin hugged her arms, shivering. Then, those tasks. Deceive her, make her pregnant. Gouge out Ji Yuan's eyes. Kill Ji Yuan and take his place. Each one reeked of blood and madness. Just then, that cold voice resonated in my mind once more. Host will detect it as passive. Issuing final directive. Remaining tasks must be completed within 72 hours, or secondary punishment will be activated. Host consciousness erasure. Countdown initiated. 71:59:59. My face instantly went stark white. Everyone present immediately understood the gravity of the situation from my expression. Officer Lee immediately asked, "What's wrong?" A final ultimatum. A 72-hour countdown. If I don't complete the tasks, I'll be erased. The entire conference room fell into a deathly silence. The word erasure was more chilling than death. Ji Yuan shot to his feet, staring at me with a look of fierce determination in his eyes. It's just breaking a leg, right? Come on, Lin Zhou, do it now. He pointed at his leg. I'm sick of this shit. You break my leg, and at least that'll buy you time on one task. I looked at him, a complex feeling churning inside me. Officer Lee sharply interjected, "Sit down. That's not how we solve this problem. We cannot compromise with an unknown, evil entity." She looked at me, her gaze firm. "Lin Zhou, the organization won't abandon you, and it certainly won't sacrifice any citizen to satisfy its perverse demands." The physics and materials teams held an emergency meeting overnight. They've come up with a plan. I was brought to a huge underground laboratory. In the center of the lab was a metal cube, about 3 meters on each side. Its surface was as smooth as a mirror, reflecting a cold silver light. "This is a top-of-the-line Faraday cage," an expert in a white coat explained to me. "Theoretically, it can block all electromagnetic signals." He then pointed to a silvery spacesuit on a nearby rack, which looked incredibly cumbersome. "This is the newly developed insulation battlesuit made of multi-layered composite materials. It can withstand an instantaneous high voltage of tens of millions of volts. We will place you in the center of the Faraday cage, wearing this suit. This is the strongest physical isolation method we can currently devise. I looked at the setup and gave a wry smile. You're making it look like you're sending me to space. Quite the grand display. The expert adjusted his glasses, his expression serious. This is no joke, Comrade Lin Zhou. We don't know what form the erasure will take. We can only do our best. Changing into the heavy battle suit, I felt like a sardine stuffed into a can. Every movement was an effort. It took several people to help me into the metal cube. The heavy metal door slowly closed, sealing off the outside world. Only a palm-sized, one-way, bulletproof glass window allowed me to see what was happening outside. Officer Li, Ji Yuan, Tang Yin, and a large group of experts all stood outside the window, watching me with solemn expressions. I smiled at them and gave a thumbs up. With so many people here with me, even death didn't seem so terrifying. The countdown ticked away in my mind, second by second. 00:05:00:00, 03:59. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. This was it. Make or break. Outside the window, Ji Yuan's fists were clenched so tightly his nails dug into his flesh. Tang Yin had her hands clasped together, eyes closed, murmuring something as if in prayer. Officer Li held a walkie-talkie, his eyes glued to the data on the monitoring screen. All units be advised. Prepare for a maximum level energy impact. 00:03:10, 03:09. The numbers in my head were like a death drumbeat. 00:02:03. Just as the countdown reached its final 2 minutes. Bang! The door of the Faraday cage was slammed open from the outside by an immense force. Ji Yuan charged in like a mad bull, his eyes bloodshot. He grabbed the cumbersome collar of my suit with one hand and, with the other, swung his fist, smashing it violently against my helmet. Lin Zhou, you goddamn coward. The system told you to break my legs. So do it. Come on. He punched again and again, like a madman. I stumbled backward from his blows, the heavy insulation suit making it impossible for me to fight back. I stared at him through my helmet, dumbfounded. Target detected with behavior more consistent with the psychotic villain model. System calculating optimal match. Match successful. System transfer in progress. Host bond released. New host bond successful. Ji Yuan. A series of prompts exploded in my mind. And then, the cold voice that had tormented me for months completely vanished. I felt like the whole world had gone quiet. As for Ji Yuan, the fist he was about to throw froze in midair. On his face was the exact same expression I had once worn, like he had seen a ghost. Fuck. He uttered a single word and then, just like me, fell straight backward. Except, he wasn't electrocuted. He had fainted from shock. The entire base was in chaos. The medical team rushed in and carried the fainted Ji Yuan out. The experts surrounded me, clumsily helping me out of the ridiculously heavy insulation suit. Officer Li looked at the wrecked Faraday cage and the unconscious Ji Yuan, his brows furrowing into a knot. Lin Zhou, what on earth happened? I stretched my limbs, which had been constrained for half a day, and let out a long sigh. Good news. That damn system. It seems to have switch hosts. When Ji Yuan woke up, the first thing he did was jump up from the hospital bed, pointing at his own head with a terrified expression. There's something in my head. In the command center's meeting room, the atmosphere was bizarre. The four of us, me, Ji Yuan, Tang Yin, and Officer Li, stared at each other. I sipped my tea leisurely, watching the restless Ji Yuan across from me, feeling more refreshed than ever. Stop looking, it's real, I said to him with a smile. Congratulations, Comrade Ji Yuan. You're now the new core member of the Anti-System Project. Ji Yuan looked devastated. Why me? I shrugged. Maybe it's because you fit that unhinged temperament better than I do. After all, you dare to rush in and start a fight. The system must have been impressed by your ferocity then. It would have to call you bro. The face of bro Ji instantly fell. Newbie mission issued. Kiss Tang Yin in public and declare that you are her man. The system's voice echoed in Ji Yuan's mind. He shuddered, his face flushing crimson. He looked at me pleadingly. I raised an eyebrow at him and mouthed the word, act. Ji Yuan took a deep breath, as if he were walking to his own execution. He walked up to Tang Yin, who was watching a new anime on a tablet, and looked up in confusion. What? Ji Yuan closed his eyes, steeled himself, and planted a kiss on Tang Yin's forehead. Then, with all his might, he roared, "From this day on, you are my woman, Tang Yin." She silently took off her glasses, wiped them with a cloth, and put them back on, as if to confirm whether what she was seeing was a hallucination. Then, she looked at Ji Yuan as if he were an idiot. "Have you been off your meds lately?" Whoosh! A stack of banknotes materialized out of thin air in front of Ji Yuan and scattered on the floor. "Everyone!" Officer Lee rubbed his temples and said wearily, "It seems our plan needs to enter version 2.0. Ji Yuan became the new system host, and I, having gloriously retired, became his off-site guide. Life couldn't be more comfortable. Mission: break into the bathroom while Tang Yin is showering. Holding the mission card, Ji Yuan's face turned green. He ran to me for help. I was lounging on a beanbag chair in the base, sipping a Coke and directing the show. Isn't this easy? Just have the director's team arrange it. Clear out the women's bathroom and have Tang Yin pose for a few shots inside. As for you, just wear a blindfold, make a braking emotion at the door, and shout a few lines like, 'Honey, I'm home,' and you'll be fine." Ji Yuan was on the verge of tears. "Those lines are too embarrassing." "Me, it's better than being electrocuted and erased by the system." Mission complete. Mission complete. Reward acquired. Invisibility cloak. When worn, grants 10 minutes of invisibility. Cannot pass through walls and will still make sound. Ji Yuan took a gray cloak that looked perfectly ordinary and presented it to Officer Lee like a treasure. Officer Lee immediately gathered the experts from the Special Operations team. 10 minutes of invisibility is enough for us to infiltrate the Paradise Island transit station and install listening and tracking devices. As the provider of the prop, Ji Yuan was commended. I patted his shoulder. "Son, not bad. Keep it up." Ji Yuan gritted his teeth. "Get lost." The next mission was even more ridiculous. Mission: steal Tang Yin's favorite life-sized anime character body pillow and burn it in front of her. When Ji Yuan saw the mission, his legs went weak. He knew better than anyone that for Tang Yin, burning her 2D husband would be worse than killing her. "Lin Zhou, what do I do this time? Tang Yin is going to kill me." I stroked my chin, pondering for a moment. Get the props department to make an identical replica overnight. Then get the special effects team to prepare some realistic flame effects. You burn the fake one in front of Tang Yin. Once the mission is complete, give the real one back to her, along with some compensation for emotional distress. The plan worked. Amidst Tang Yin's heart-wrenching and acted sobs, Ji Yuan completed the mission. Mission complete. Reward acquired. Gloves of strength. When worn, grants the strength of 1,000 Jin for 1 hour. This prop was even more useful. The engineering team's experts used it to easily complete several difficult equipment installations. The rescue team also relied on it during a mine collapse rescue, lifting a massive fallen boulder with their bare hands to save the trapped miners. Ji Yuan became the new hero. When he walked through the base, people would salute him. Seeing him act all modest after getting all the benefits made me feel quite unbalanced. Why is it that when he does missions, he gets to be a hero, but when I did them, all I got was social death? So every day, I started following him around, shouting, "Good boy, son." Until one day, the system issued a mission that wiped the smiles off everyone's faces. Ultimate mission: kill Lin Zhou. Mission failure will result in the complete eradication of all intelligent life forms within this spatial quadrant. The conference room was deadly silent. On the screen, the ultimate mission was displayed in large red letters. Kill Lin Zhou. Otherwise, eliminate all. Ji Yuan's face was whiter than paper. He shot up from his seat, staring at me, his eyes filled with terror and disbelief. Tang Yin was also frightened out of her wits. The tablet in her hand clattered to the floor, the screen shattering. "What kind of joke is this?" Officer Lee's expression was so grim it could drip water. She slammed her fist on the table, creating a loud bang. Bastard. This was the first time I had ever seen her lose her composure like this. This time, the system did not provide a countdown, but the phrase "eliminate all" hung like a sword of Damocles over everyone's head. It was no longer a threat directed at me alone, but at the entire world. Seeing Ji Yuan's near breakdown state, I, on the contrary, smiled. I stood up, walked over to him, and patted his face. Son, it seems your good days are over. How about it? Why not just obey the system? Kill me, then tie up Tang Yin, and you'll reach the pinnacle of your life. I smiled playfully, my tone full of provocation. I wanted to anger him, to anger the system, to make that damn thing come back to me. A miracle did not happen a second time. No matter how I taunted him with vicious words or attacked him like a madman, the system had no reaction. It just stayed there, quietly in Ji Yuan's mind, awaiting his decision. Ji Yuan looked at me, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. After a long while, he suddenly laughed too, a laugh uglier than crying. How could I possibly lay a hand on my son? He turned around, faced Officer Li, and said, word by word, with utmost clarity, Officer Li, I, Ji Yuan, refuse to carry out this mission. His voice was not loud, but it exploded like thunder in everyone's ears. Tang Yin also recovered from her shock. She picked up the shattered tablet, hugged it to her chest, and buried her head low. Don't look at me, don't look at me. I'm just an innocent anime girl. Her voice was choked with sobs, her body trembling like a fallen leaf in the autumn wind. Everyone's gaze converged on Officer Li. She was the highest commander here. Her decision would determine the fate of this world. Officer Li closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, the anger and struggle were gone, replaced by a calm resolve. I understand. All units initiate the final protocol of the Kindling Project. The Kindling Project was a backup plan established from the very beginning of the anti-system project. A plan to preserve the last glimmer of hope for human civilization after all other efforts had failed. Officer Li ordered the destruction of all top-secret paper documents related to the system. All electronic data was encrypted, sealed, and loaded onto a specially made probe. The probe's destination was the moon. We don't know what the erasure will be like, nor do we know if it will affect the moon. But this is the only clue we can leave for the future. Officer Li's voice was calm and hoarse. The entire base operated in an atmosphere of solemn efficiency. No one cried. No one complained. Everyone was at their post, carrying out their final tasks. The system gave no deadline, but no one knew when the end would come. Officer Li gave the three of us a special leave. 3 days. Go and do whatever you want. We didn't choose to go home and say goodbye to our families. That would only bring unnecessary panic and sorrow. If the world was truly going to disappear, perhaps departing peacefully in ignorance was the best ending. The three of us bought plane tickets for a snow mountain that same day. Jade Dragon Snow Mountain. We stayed in a small town at the foot of the mountain, without attempting to climb the snow-capped peak that pierced the clouds. We just found a quiet meadow and sat down. In the distance was the majestic snow mountain. Nearby, a stream formed from melting snow gurgled. We just sat there quietly, listening to the sound of melting snow all day long. No one spoke. Not until the setting sun dyed the snow mountain gold. Ji Yuan suddenly spoke, breaking the silence. Linzhou, if it weren't for the system, where would we be now? I looked at the distant snowy peak and thought for a moment. You'd probably still be struggling with tuition and living expenses, working part-time while you paint. And I'd still be that aimless second-generation rich kid, living a debauched life day by day. Tang Yin hugged the cushion in her arms tighter. We bought her a new one. I'd probably still be lying at home, binging new anime while eating potato chips. We all fell silent. It turned out that before we encountered the system, our lives were so mundane, even somewhat unremarkable. It was this damned system that forcibly bound the three of us, who were complete strangers, together. It was also the system that made us experience a life more turbulent and magnificent than we could have ever imagined. I'm sorry, Ji Yuan suddenly said in a low voice, and also, thank you, Linzhou. I was taken aback for a moment, then I understood what he meant. Me too, I said. Thank you for not choosing to kill me. And thank you for being willing to face this worst of all endings with me. Tang Yin rested her head on my shoulder and began to sob quietly. I reached out and awkwardly patted her back. The sun set and night fell. The snow mountain disappeared into the darkness, with only the snow on its peak reflecting the cold light of the stars. The 3-day holiday was over. We returned to the base, to that secret conference room we knew so well. Officer Lee was already waiting there. Her face showed no emotion. The probe has been successfully launched and is expected to land at the Sea of Tranquility base in 24 hours, she said. Then, she looked at the three of us and suddenly smiled. It was a genuine, warm smile. Welcome back, my heroes. We didn't know when the system's judgment would come. Maybe in the next second, maybe tomorrow. But we decided to face it together. We sat at the conference table, holding hands, just like the first time we met. Only this time, there was no longer any distance or suspicion between us. I looked at Ji Yuan to my left. He was nervously licking his lips. Then I looked at Tang Yin to my right. She had stopped crying, her gaze unusually firm. I smiled. To die with these two. It didn't seem so bad. Time passed, second by second. Nothing happened. Just as we thought it was all just a cruel joke from the system, that cold voice, without any warning, rang out in all three of our minds at the same time. World line convergence complete. Final judgment countdown initiated. 109. Here it comes. The three of us gripped each other's hands tighter. I closed my eyes. Ji Yuan's breathing grew heavy. Tang Yin's body was trembling slightly. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Countdown complete. Final judgment commencing. The anticipated turning to ash, the world collapsing. None of it happened. I opened my eyes in confusion. On the conference table before us, a book had appeared at some point. It had a deep blue cover with a line of gill font that read, "The psycho system made me commit crimes, so I turned it over to the state." The psycho male supporting lead fell in love with me. The three of us were stunned. What was this? Giving us a novel to read before we die? Immediately after, a completely different voice sounded in our minds. This voice was gentle, neutral, and full of goodwill. Congratulations to the three World Cooperative creators for successfully completing the core logic of World No. 734. Character self-awareness achieved. Plot integrity and depth have reached their final sublimation. Overall evaluation grade, SSS. Before we could react, a massive stream of information instantly flooded our minds. We saw the end of the universe, the boundary of dimensions. The world we inhabit is not real, or rather, not entirely real. It is a world editor created by civilization from a higher dimension. They deployed countless plot triggers like the psychopathic villain system into these created worlds. The purpose was to observe and test how story logic would evolve and how characters would grow under different initial settings and external stimuli. And we are the chosen testers, or rather, co-creators. That psychopathic system, its existence was merely to stimulate the most extreme emotions in the characters and create the most intense conflicts. Every task it issued was a plot anchor, and our every act of resistance, every cooperation, every choice was not a deviation from the plot. Instead, we were using our own will to complete the logic of the story, to flesh out the characters. Handing the system over to the state was the first turning point in the story. The intervention of state power elevated the story's scope from personal grievances to a higher level. Ji Yuan replacing me as the host was the second turning point. It proved that a villain is not born, but a character attribute that can be influenced by environment and choice. And our final choice to face the threat of complete obliteration and refuse to turn on each other was the ultimate sublimation of this story. We changed our own destiny with our own hands. And with our own hands, we transformed what could have been a cliched system novel into a unique story about humanity, choice, and resistance. The stream of information disappeared. The three of us were still immersed in the immense shock, unable to speak for a long time. Officer Lee looked at our stunned expressions and asked with some concern, "What's wrong with you all?" I came back to my senses, looked at her, then at Ji Yuan and Tang Yin beside me. Then I picked up the book on the table. The psychopathic male supporting character fell in love with me. I opened it to the first page. It read, Creators, Lin Zhou, Ji Yuan, Tang Yin, and the thousands upon thousands of people who worked hard to protect this story. I smiled, so hard that tears streamed down my face. I handed the book to Officer Lee. Captain Lee, we succeeded. We saved the world. Although this world may just be a story, but everything that happened here, our joys and sorrows, our struggles and growth, are all incredibly real. And that is enough. Officer Lee took the book, looked at the words on it, and a relieved smile appeared on her face. I knew you could do it. After that, the insane system, along with that gentle SSS-level evaluation system, both disappeared. Our world returned to the peace it deserved. But some things had changed forever. The oil field discovered because of the Child of Destiny prop brought about an earth-shaking transformation in the country's energy structure. The formula left by that leading figure in physics allowed humanity to take a giant leap forward in the field of controllable nuclear fusion. The praise-based education method brought about by the Lie amplifier profoundly influenced the growth of a generation. In a bizarre way, we had pushed the progress of the entire world forward. Ji Yuan did not continue his art career, but instead joined Officer Lee's Special Operations team, becoming a glorious national security officer. He said that after experiencing so much, he wanted to do something more meaningful. Tang Yin didn't continue to be a homebody either. She discovered her own talent during several performances and was admitted to the directing department of the Film Academy. She said she wanted to create stories more brilliant than any new anime series. And I, under the organization's arrangement, became the first curator of the Anti-System Project Memorial Hall, a sinecure. My daily work consisted of drinking tea, reading the newspaper, and occasionally telling our magnificent stories of the past to visiting leaders. I went back to being that rich second-generation kid who just loafed around. But this time, my heart was incredibly grounded and peaceful. Occasionally, Ji Yuan would come to see me in a crisp uniform and freeload a meal off me. He still couldn't kick the habit of stealing meat from my bowl. Curator Lin, eat more vegetables. Maintain your figure. Get lost. I like it this way. Tang Yin, on the other hand, would send me her student films from time to time for my feedback. Her cinematic language was increasingly showing the makings of a master. She said that for her graduation project, she was planning to shoot a story about us. She even had a title for it. It would be called The Insane System Made Me Commit Crimes, so I turned it over to the state. I thought it was a pretty good name. That day, the weather was very nice. I was lying on a rocking chair in the courtyard of the Memorial Hall, basking in the sun. Ji Yuan and Tang Yin had come to see me again. The three of us sat quietly, just like that day, at the foot of the snowy mountain, without a word. The sunlight was warm, and the years were quiet and good. I suddenly thought of a question. By the way, that book, where did it end up? That book, the insane male supporting character fell in love with me. Ji Yuan and Tang Yin looked at each other, and both shook their heads. It had vanished as mysteriously as it had appeared. Perhaps it was just proof that we had been here, had fought, and had ultimately won. And that was enough. I closed my eyes, the corners of my mouth turning up slightly. The future was still long, and our story was just beginning.